So I'll turn it over to you, Rick, and if you have some opening thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody. Looks like we've got Jerry and George and Chip on there as well. So we've got the three long-term TTIers. Tammy and I just had talked a few times over the last couple of months, and just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions, as she said, and see if there's some things that maybe is kind of an outlier out there, or something that you've had a hard time transitioning clients or prospects over from what you're used to using to what you have the opportunity to use going forward. And also wanted to just invite everyone to our annual conference in January, coming up January 20th, 2022. So we have some information on that as well. So any additional thoughts from Jerry or George or Chip? Jerry, you always got something to add.
I'm speechless. When
you're speechless.
Oh, that goes so deep, Rick. No, I of course, we've been very wrapped up in the new product, the Prioritized Leader product from TTI. And we have now 10 certified partners here in TPL, and we are really excited. We have our first client, which is really exciting for TPL. So we're starting to move on those tools, and of course that tool will lead us to other TTI tools as well with those engagements. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. So we're really excited about that. And one of the things I think for all of the trusted advisor people who have joined the TTI network, there's so many complementary tools to the trusted advisor suite that this is just going to strengthen your practices more and more and more and more. I've always believed that, and I know Tammy did too, and Rick, and we finally were able to see that happen. So I just think it's a tremendous step forward. And I think we're finding that. I don't know did I lose? No, there's Sandy. I know Sandy's one of those newer people over to TTI, so you may have a different perspective than I do, since I've been in both networks for almost 30 years. You may have a different perspective about this now that you're a part of the TTI thing also.
Well, just a comment to that. Yes, I'm newer to the network, and also with TTI. I just joined this past spring when Tan transitioned over. So I went through the certification in DISC and driving forces, and have just gone through with Jerry's team the prioritized leader materials. And I have to say I haven't used them with a client yet. So I'm still getting my hands sort of into the game. And one thing I realized I don't know that much about is poking around in all the TTI stuff that you have. There's like 1.5 million resources and things in there, but I haven't delved into it and not quite sure where to start.
Okay.
And not everybody on the call, including me, is familiar with the prioritized leader. Can we say more about that so we all know what we're talking about?
Jerry, do you want to do that? Or Rick, why don't you do that?
Jerry probably has more experience with it than I do as well. It's something we've added just about, I guess it was the beginning of 2020 when we added that product. We've had, I don't know, I think 250, close to 300 people go through the certification process for that tool, but it's built on 5 pillars, and it's really all about leadership and kind of how you can implement that within the organization. But like I said, Jerry, you've probably had more experience and more application than I do. So if you want to add a little bit.
Yeah. So there are 5 the 5 pillars that Rick is talking about, the 5 P's, as Brandon Schaefer or Rodney Cox would talk about, our purpose, people, pace, perception, and profit. And you take an assessment, a 54-question assessment that tells you how you see those factors, how you align with those factors in your business. It's eye-opening. And even for our own team, we took them and we did not have the ideal alignment ourselves, which I found very interesting. But then we started to understand why as the process unfolds. And it is a very robust program. There are, I think I may be now fibbing about numbers. I think there are 39 videos that carry you through some of the ideas in that process, along with coaching or group team kinds of work that you can do with this process. And it really makes executives take a very, very hard look. And particularly, it draws them in. So we have learned, because I went out right away, I went out immediately and I put a big proposal together and I presented and they said, no, I didn't do a very good job of it, I have to admit. But I went back now on the second one, we only presented the assessment. We only sold the assessment. And after 5 sessions with our partner with the assessment, now he's moving forward with everything else. So the idea with TPL is to step in. It's too big otherwise. You go in and you overwhelm the client. That's our view at this point, and we have limited experience at this point. And internally, we've had quite the wonderful time with our 10 partners. And Sandy has a very keen eye towards things. Let's say that she can tear a process apart pretty good, and she's done that, and that's been very helpful. And then looking at all the other pieces, it's helping all of our practices, and it's also, helping our client practices. So it's a winner. It's another thing that TTI has put out there. Obviously, there has to be an assessment with it. I think that would be a cardinal sin if there were no assessment. Rick, would that be correct? I would not get absolution for using a non-assessment system through you guys, but and it ties very nicely, Tammy, to then some of the ideas of stepping into leadership development or executive leadership development, or you can see the connection working really well with the TAN stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jerry. It is a perfect door opener for leadership, strategic planning, primarily those two, and very especially leadership. I would say that probably every company that goes through the prioritized leader would see the need for taking it the next step to leadership and moving leadership on down the organization. So,
absolutely. We're diving into strategic planning in a deep.
Yes,
deep
yes.
Right. Yeah.
So you'd say it's an easier entree. It's not as daunting. Maybe it's easier for people to get their arms around the first time.
Yeah. Who's going to say no to just taking an assessment, right? Well, I'm sure there are a few people out there, but generally speaking, it's pretty harmless. And even if you gave that away as a loss leader, it costs you $25. I mean, you can't beat it. It's just it's that door opener that we've had other kinds of things that we do to open doors, but it's so comprehensive that it changes the relationship with especially a newer client.
I think something else that it does too is a lot of times you're going to find that companies will come up with profit and pace as their top things that they're focused on. But when you really go back to it and you look at what's the purpose and where are the people, that's something that's so important, because the connection piece is critical right now as we're all living through this resignation era that we're going through in the United States. And most people are quitting because they don't have a connection to the work or the connection to the organization. They like the people that they're working with, but they're not connected to the work. And that's where the purpose and everything from this process starts. And so I think it helps you understand kind of the pace of your projects, and some of those things are important, but they're not what should be driving the organization. So it gives you a conversation starter, and then it leads into like you guys said, the other TAN tools that are there that can really go deep into the organization. So I think from an assessment standpoint,
again, it's a great fit. I'll say one of my aha moments was we have always kind of followed the idea of diagnosis, prognosis, treatment, and follow up. You know, that kind of approach to digging into a client situation. And Brandon Schaefer, who was the kind of the inventor of this system, said, well, think about triage. Because if somebody's bleeding because of the pace or taking too many projects on, they got too much stuff going on and nothing's getting done, for example, triage that, fix that, get that solved, then move back to the ideal order of maybe it is about purpose and it's about people, but you don't try to talk to somebody about their purpose when their arm is hanging half off of their body because they've been in an accident. You know, you don't do it. And I just thought that was just such a great analogy. I'll use it again and again with clients. I have no doubt that'll get used with clients. So you know, we'll see what happens.
Hey, Rick, do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Chip.
Well, actually, two questions. First of all, and maybe a statement. For the people who have not been to a TTI conference, I think I've missed maybe 3 in the last 20 years. It's always a highlight of my year is to go to that. If you could tell a little bit about what goes on at the conference and maybe spark some interest. And then the other question is, you know, one of the things that has always been a hallmark of the conference is there's always a couple of new wrinkles of reports that are coming out or new versions or what have you. So could you talk a little bit about that? I think that'd be helpful to other people on the call.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I don't know if I have the ability to share my screen or not. I did put the link to the conference website in the chat, and it looks like Tammy's given me permission to share here shortly.
Yep, you're a co-host.
All right, thank you. So here's the website. It's r3.ttisi.com. I'm not going to play the video for you, but there's a 30-second kind of commercial video to kick it off. As you can see, it's R3 is really the theme. Reconnect, re-engage, and re-energize. Our original R3 goes back to our why statement of revealing human potential and then releasing that potential, and organizations and humans can then realize their potential. So those are the original R3, but I think, again, going back to what's happening in our world today, the reconnection, the re-engaging, and the re-energizing is a critical piece. It's, as I said here, January 20th to the 22nd, so 2022, easy to remember. It's 2 full days of interaction where we'll have some main stage stuff, plus we'll have 3 different breakout opportunities going on throughout the 2 days. Opening keynote, closing keynote. As Chip mentioned, we'll have on the 2nd day some new product launches. I'll talk about that in a minute. You can see here this is some pictures from previous years. We have the different tracks. We have the research track, the hiring and selection track, teams track, and then evolving your business track. We're going to talk about the new horizontal discontinuum, impact for VAAs or affiliates like yourselves, and then talent development as well. So Wednesday and Thursday, we have some pre-conference training. We have some Trimetrics HD recertification, but then I think the one that I'm most excited about is this 1:30 to 4 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, where we're going to ask the people that are attending that to give us graphs of people that they've worked with in the past. And so just a couple hours of sitting around talking about clients and some of the strange things that they've seen, some of the things that they have questions about. And we've done that in client trainings and different trainings before, and it's always kind of the highlight of the 2 days of that training. So that one I think is going to be pretty exciting. You can see on Thursday we've got some EQ, benchmarking, prioritize leader. This is a mastermind session, and then we'll kick off kind of the conference that night with welcome reception, and we're going to do the awards to start the couple days. So, and then as you go into Friday, you can see that there's 3 different tracks. So main stage, the learning lab, and the breakouts. And then on Saturday, the same thing, main stage, learning labs, and breakouts. And so lots of great information there. Pricing is down at the bottom. And so that's kind of the extent of what you're going to find on that site. But it's really kind of the kickoff to the year. We've been doing this since, I think 1990 was our first year. 1990 was our first year that we've done the conference. They've been every year except for last year. We did it virtually, but every year it's been in person. We're excited to get everybody back together this year. And so it's something that just kind of gives you the opportunity to hang out with your peers for 2 or 3 days. And we build in lots of breaks and networking time so that you can have those face-to-face conversations. And so that's kind of the kickoff that's coming to start 2022.
And it's in a beautiful place at the Wild Horse Pass Resort, which Rick wanted to put it as far away from me as he could possibly get it and still legally be inside of Arizona. Because it is at the other end.
We got to sell the room nights, Jerry. So I put it a long ways away so we get you to stay overnight.
Don't do it for me. You're right. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Rick, is it recorded for those who are unable to attend?
Yeah, we won't be able to record the keynotes, but everything else will be recorded, and that'll be something that'll be available to purchase a week or 2 after the event.
I think an advantage, and Chip, maybe you can say more about this, but there'll be affiliates there from probably 40 different countries. And they bring a host of ideas to really broaden our perspective. There's some very innovative ways that the TTI products and services are being used. And once again, door openers for the Trusted Advisors products. Very, very innovative thinkers from overseas.
And it gives George and I a chance to get together and drink.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that the government will open the borders so we can get some of the international folks here. Right now, we're still kind of up in the air of what the travel requirements are going to be, but hopefully we will definitely get our group of international people here.
Yeah. Well, at least they're opening travel on 8th of November, so that's good.
We just did a retreat with a client, and they had people from other countries. I don't know how they got them in here or didn't, but there were probably half of the people of the 19 people were from outside the United States. And that was in Glen Falls, New York, that took place. But yeah, so somehow they got them in. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I spent 10 days in Europe, not last week, but the week before. And so it was good to be able to get over there and see some of the international clients. Other questions or ideas, thoughts from anybody?
I have one.
Yeah.
Following up on prioritized leadership as an entry point, I just saw on the site of one of our affiliates that there is something called working from home. So there is basically a free working from home small survey, kind of with the idea of getting people interested in, and I assume building from there. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, I'll go on the site and look at it, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Yeah, that was March of 2020 when we all had to pack up and go home and start working remote. We had one of our affiliates actually from Australia said, you know, that you have some different things that has statements and things that really would be easily modified to apply to working remotely. And so we collaborated a little bit on that. And within a couple of weeks of that conversation, we were able to put together a very short free assessment that we offered not only to our network, but for our network to offer to all of their potential clients. We had it kind of as a main point on our website for the last year, or for about a year, and then we pulled it back. But it's still available to everybody for free. Gives you kind of your communication style based on the highs and lows, or right side and left side of the horizontal continuum, just depending on what you're looking at. And then it also gives you a page of study tips. And so we've given away just over 100,000 of those reports since we originally launched it in 2020. And so still there. And yes, you can use that to work with your clients and kind of pique their interest to see what's next.
And Robert, we did use them with our clients, and the clients loved us being able to do that. Even the report is a toy compared to other TTI assessments that are out there, but just the idea that we made it available to them. And we did other things. We taught people how to use Zoom. We did all kinds of things for our clients that were non-revenue things, but were designed really to stay connected in a time when it was difficult to be connected, so that's a good tool. The engagement report, Rick, would be another one. That's also a really nice compact tool that helps people to understand this whole issue of whether a person's engaged or not engaged at work.
Yeah, that was kind of the follow-up to that tool. So we launched the working from home in the end of March. And then in August of 2020, we launched the Talent Insights Engagement Report. And it was kind of, to now looking back, it was really more about how connected are you, and how can you stay connected? How can you communicate with your employees? How can you be sure that they're energized and have the resources and things they need for the engagement? Because a lot of organizations will talk about engagement as it's a thing. It's like, we need more engagement in this organization. Well, you can't just add engagement. You have to create an environment where employees can become motivated and can become engaged. And so we were able to put that report together. Again, a somewhat short report. It has action items on each of the pages. And so it's something that's great because it's a little less expensive than some of the other ones. And you can go in and run everybody through the organization through if you would like. And so that's kind of the point with that one. And as I mentioned, some of the new stuff that I'm hoping to launch in January, we have another one called 8 Factors of Engagement, which actually gives you an engagement score based on these 8 factors. And so when you have that and we tie it to the Talent Insights Engagement Report, you will be able to say, okay, here is your current level of engagement for the employee, and the Talent Insights Engagement Report is your roadmap to improving that engagement, because it gives you all of those things that could be hindering that person from being engaged. And so that, I think, is going to be a pretty exciting combination that will be out in 2022. So it's something new that's on the docket. As Chip mentioned, we'll talk about that one in January some more.
And again, that has a good connection to the trusted advisors products with the engagement chapter. A good lead in, good way to connect the need with the more in-depth development that would come from the trusted advisors products.
Exactly.
What other thoughts or questions for Rick? Now that we've switched over, I'll ask a broad question, since we've now, kind of officially switched over for several months. The trusted gang, are you using the TTI tools any differently than you were the previous tools? Have you found any new ways that you were excited to use it pre-client as a marketing tool, or post-client as a facilitation tool?
I've been using it as an entree to get people interested, and then there's always that leap, that stepping off point when you've done an assessment and people go, "Oh, that's great, that's me, I got it, thank you." but that's not it. There's a lot more to it. And I think there are times when it's more difficult to bring someone from that moment where they feel they've learned something to the next level of learning how to improve something and really changing their lives. So any thoughts or advice on that, I'd welcome.
Bill Bonstetter used to say, you can't give away enough assessments. And he was right. And the more you get it out there, get people to experience it and use it, even if it's not something you think is going to lead to an immediate sale, it's astonishing what comes back over time. And people say, hey, years ago, I took this metrics from you and so on. I have a call right after this call today with a client, a very stubborn client, I might add, who I've had a devil of a time selling job benchmarking to. I've even had difficulty getting her to really use TriMetrics in the right way. She did her usual hiring thing, and she came back to me today. We've got to talk. This TriMetrics result really concerns me. There are some issues here. I'm ready to offer this person a job, and now I'm not so sure. Well, that's because she's using it backwards. I'll discuss that with her. But the TriMetrics, of course, it lays it out there. There's no denying, if there's issues, especially in dimensional balance, that's true. And so, once again, this thing comes riding in. It's giving me another opportunity to try to convince her not to be so stubborn about assessments. We'll see if I succeed or not.
I think I would add to that, Robert, that a lot of times people will go through the assessment and they'll think it's great, but they'll say, okay, what do I do with it? And I think that's a great connection with the TAN group, is that you have so much information of this is what we do with it. This is what's next. And so that assessment can kind of get your foot in the door, get the credibility built, and say, okay, now here are the things that we can do to solve your pain. And I always tell my kickoff boot camps every month that we're an assessment company. Nobody wants to buy an assessment. And I do believe that. And people come to our website to solve a problem. They don't come to our website to find an assessment to buy. And so when you can look at it from solution standpoint, Sandy, you had mentioned kind of it's overwhelming, but there's opportunity to kind of go in and look at what are the different solutions that we can solve. We have all of the TAN solutions and those kinds of things. And an assessment is just a tool. It's probably one of the more important tools that are going to get you the information you need in order to solve the problem, to gain the outcome that you need. But again, it's just a tool that connects all the dots and opens the doors for communication and those things. So I think that's the piece that's exciting about this partnership that we have, is we have some of the best assessments out there, and TAN has all the great materials and IP that you can then put them together and solve people's problems and make an impact in the organizational potential and the individual potential of the people.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, when you're teeing it up, are you suggesting early on that there could be a multiple step process?
Yes, but probably, yes, but probably not effectively enough. It's just something I have to be conscious of, that the real magic happens when you go beyond the assessment. So, but good question.
The assessment, Robert, is a discovery tool, right? It's a way to figure out where people are at, who they are, how they're made up. This international group I was talking about that we just work with, they were astonished at their results. And they're all presidents of individual companies owned by this parent company. That's who all these people in this group were. And they were astonished, and they identified some communication challenges and issues and silo issues and so on that they were experiencing. And so now we're being called back in again. Thank you very much, TriMetrics. And we also did a piece on team building with them in that retreat. And again, it showed issues that were going on. And so it opened the door. Now the door is finally open. This has taken us, this was originally sold in in January of 2020, and we just finally got it done because we couldn't get them together, you know. But think about that and think how that opened that up at a very high level, you know. So we don't have to go through intermediaries here. We're talking to the leaders of each of these individual businesses and their bosses. And so it's a wonderful opportunity. I think there might be some leadership development in their future, you know, as an example. It makes perfect sense. Executive leadership maybe for this group, and then on down, right? So it's good.
Do you find starting with executive leadership is the way to get those decision makers convinced it works and then push it down to the organization?
I mean, I don't know, how does the rest of the group feel? I mean, you know, is it top down or bottom up, or where do you start?
George, I think you're on, I don't know if you're purposely on mute and talking to somebody else.
I think it all depends what the issues are, where you start. And the assessments don't give us the answers. The assessments give us the information to ask the right questions to get the answers. And if the question is something like team friction, then that's one thing. If it's something like poor strategic thinking and planning and rolling down the organization, that's another piece to probe and another place to start. If the salespeople aren't selling, it shows where the problems are, and from that, the questions to ask and open the door for that. So the neat thing is it does provide a focus for us to ask those questions to get more into that organization, deeper into that organization, and information to provide them with additional development tools.
And Tammy, in response to your question, I'm not sure that it's so much effective using the materials differently, but because it is information gathering, you know, doing the fact finding first, and then it's building on that in your coaching and whatever. But the tool, particularly in the assessment, I mean, I must say, I think the TTI assessment compared to the one we used to use, the reports have a lot more information. Sometimes it's almost overwhelming, but there's much more information in there. But the fact that the use of the continuum, to me, I think was just a major difference, that it's not like you're high, low, or you are this, that, or the other in terms of your motivators. But the driving forces being the continuum really gives an interesting insight, particularly if there's an issue going on between two leaders or a boss and a supervisee or something, when that really can help you. I never used the motivators before terribly well. It was like, okay, well, you're more this and you're more that. And if you're not high in economic, but somebody else is this, maybe you have a conflict. But now it's so much easier, it pops off the page as to what's going on. And particularly when you can have two people who work together and compare theirs, or a team. So I think the use, and then it depends, and then it all leads to basically coaching. It all opens itself up to say, the now what? And let's work through this. What does it mean? What are you going to do with it? Let's talk about it and whatever.
There's a big difference between low intellectual and instinctive, right? Nobody wants to be called low intellectual. Finally, I'm not low intellectual, right?
I hear you.
Yes, and every high D needs a low D on the team.
Yeah,
sure.
There you go. Same thing now on disc, right? So,
yeah.
That's that direct versus reflective.
What, Tammy?
I said the continuum does make a world of difference between the comparison of the tools. The way we used to train in the previous tool is train your brain to take high and low out of your vocabulary. For the sake of this conversation, a 28D, yes, it's numerically low, but that's not how you should debrief it. So that was something that we were very conscious of with the other tool. Train your brain to say what your number tells me, but the continuum makes it so much easier not to train your brain to do that, because using high and low sends people to the wrong spot. And no one likes low.
Nobody likes.
And everyone wants to hear intellectual. So that there's a conversation that has to be had with that.
Yeah. Or I'd much rather be pioneering than low compliant. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Are you speaking from experience?
Maybe.
But even with the continuums, I still haven't let my debriefing brain go to anything other than what your number tells me in all three of the tools, you know, driving forces disc, because the numbers are just a symbol of where you fall in this continuum. The number, because we all were raised in an education system that if I had a 90, it was good. And if I had a 20, oh, that really sucks. So
Right.
the number, you can't do anything about that because it's an assessment, it's numerically. So I've just encouraged folks, even with the new tools, and they are more robust, and I think more robust in a better way. The continuum helps a lot, but the numbers are still there.
Absolutely.
Other questions or thoughts or discussion points? One of the things that I've been working with Rick on and some of his team members, and it builds off a suggestion that George shared, is that we're trying to figure out a way to introduce some of the other TTI VAAs to the trusted advisors tools to see if it helps them in their practice in any way, whether that's a physical presentation in January or Jerry and George and Chip have all offered to be our representative if a physical presence doesn't work out. So we're also looking to, just for information for you guys, we're going to talk about it in our town hall in Power Summit in 2 weeks. So you guys kind of get the ear to the ground, if you will. So we're going to see, because of the synergies, we've been working on extending the partnership to some of the other TTA representatives, or TTI rather, representatives, to see if we can help them build their practices to even a higher level. So pretty exciting stuff.
That is to their advantage. That is to their advantage. My whole practice is built around these two bodies, really, you know, and it pays off every time. And if you want to have clients for a long time and be deeply embedded in their businesses, you know.
Well, you know, George and you, Jerry and Chip, who must have dropped, have been awesome cheerleaders for this partnership. So we really appreciate that support. But yeah, we're going to see what we can do to help some other folks in their practices.
That was a goal for 25 years. So it came to fruition.
Yes, sir.
I think the other thing that is a strength of the TTI materials is there's a process for getting clients certified. And what that does is build loyalty and connection within our clients' organizations to each of us. And once that commitment's there, they lean toward and promote within the various tools that we have. And it always keeps us as a TTI rep and a TAN associate connected within that organization. It provides a solid connection and a partnership for years and years to come.
I think what you're finding this year is a lot of people are switching companies too. And so you may have had a client connection in one place, and now that person is in a new organization, and now you have a new client as they bring you into the new client or new organization as well.
Exactly right.
Yeah, we always hope at least one person quits and goes to another company because it opens the door for us.
It's very, very true.
Colonization.
I was just talking to Doug Brown about this exact issue just the other day. He's had 3 clients because of one person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you never know when it's going to happen. I'm still working with this company, and I was kind of involved in the firing of an employee. And then the guy reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I got this new thing going. We really need your help."
Great.
Oh. Really? After I help fire you?
Well, you must have had compliments to you for handling that situation extremely well.
I mean, I didn't do the firing, but it was quite clear that he didn't fit the role.
Sometimes that's the best thing for the person, though, and it's a relief for them to have this new opportunity to go somewhere else. And so maybe he saw you as somebody that gave him an opportunity in life.
Yeah, I think it was just more the connection. I mean, I never was obnoxious with him, I guess. And after he left, I connected with him on LinkedIn. I just kept the relationship warm. Just, you never know. And besides, he's a person. He needs someone to reach out and be there for him.
Yeah.
Certainly our goal is that nobody is unhappy where they're working. If you're not happy, I often say to individual employees or leaders, why are you still here? If you're not happy, why don't you go find what makes you happy and go do that? Now, maybe you've got to add some skills or something to your resume or whatever, but why would you go to work every day saying, I hate this place, I hate my boss, I hate, come on. If it is to be, it's up to me, right? Come on. I think that's, Tammy, one of the quotes I stole from you guys, one of many.
Life's too short and miserable.
Well, as Bill Bonstetter said several times, can you imagine working someplace 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and none of your driving forces or your motivators are being met?
Nothing. Yeah. No way. Yeah.
Any other questions that are specific to any of the tools or any kind of a client scenario that you've struggled with, anything like that you want to talk about in the 10 or 15 minutes we have left?
So I have a challenge. It's probably more to trusted advisors than it is to TTI, but
that's fine.
We see patterns, right? And so an example of a pattern, here's a guy that's kind of disengaged from his job, not in the sense that he talks about it, but he's always 3 minutes late. And whenever he has to report, let me find that, it's like he's never quite ready. His motive, and I did this under Intermetrics, so forgive me. His motivators are those of an altruist. He's high theoretical, and altruist and high theoretical, so more of a mentor kind of a guy, right? And it's very frustrating to the owner, who's more of a get it done right now kind of a guy. When I go over to his acumen side, his attributes, his empathy is really low. And so how can you be a mentor if your empathy is really low? So there's kind of like a contradiction in there. So my first thought is, okay, maybe I'll ask him to take the thing over again. But so what I'm looking for, that's just an example. In a generic sense, when you have these combinations of DISC, driving forces, and acumen, how do we make sort of a guideline, an algorithm that says, oh, you ought to look at these 4 chapters out of leadership, or you ought to look at these 2 chapters in leadership and this one out of time strategies, or something like that. It'd be really neat to have sort of a little map that says, when you find this problem, your answer might be here.
One of the things that I would say to that, and then I'll let Tammy talk too, but is we changed our empathy or empathetic outlook to understanding others, because I truly don't believe that is measuring a person's empathy. The empathy is going to come more from the driving forces, the altruistic, as you mentioned there. But I think what you're describing is that this person wants to help others, but he doesn't understand others and he doesn't know how to help them because of that. So that low score, the low internal intrinsic score, let's just call it that as a common language. I think that score is maybe he just doesn't understand people as well as he would like to. And so, and then the conflict with the boss is maybe just doing a comparison report for them to understand each other is another opportunity there, because sometimes just bringing those blind spots about each other to light is going to be that first step in the awareness of being able to kind of understand how we can actually work together. because he probably wants to be successful and the boss probably wants to have this person be productive. And so either you got to cut bait and move on, or you got to figure out how can we all work together. And so those would be some of the pieces that I would add from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely would concur. And to my, your map idea is something that we could actually, you know, perhaps even work on. But I'll use a recent example. He's bringing the client as a case study in 2 weeks. We're starting to do more and more customized solutions for affiliates. One of the case studies that we have coming up in 2 weeks, he's been on some of these calls. You probably remember Bob Kinney. All of his work in his last couple of projects has been absolutely customized. So he's worked with Wendy for most of it and some with me, where he's basically saying, you know, here's what I found in the needs assessment. And the assessment part of that equation can be part of that conversation. And we've created, I'm going to call it a customized time management for one of his groups. He's working with 41 folks. And I think that has, don't quote me on this, but I think that has like 4 chapters and part of an action plan. And he's doing a customized team leadership for 20 people that has, again, don't quote me, but I'm close, you know, maybe 7 chapters and the organizational portion of the annual goals review. So that's the action plan he selected. So the map, if we had a map, Mike, that would be perfect. And you could just, you know, do this and this. But we have conversations with affiliates all the time about, here's what I learned in my needs assessment. Here's what the assessment data is telling me. Help me figure out what chapters and how many chapters, because yeah, the off the shelf stuff is good. We have affiliates that, you know, Tom Leonard, he's off the shelf strategic plan. He doesn't customize and he would swear to it every day long. He loves the strategic planning process as it is. He has never customized, nor do I suspect he will ever customize. So we've got those kind of customers, but we're getting more and more folks, to your point, Mike, where help me take the data that I learned in my fact finding and what my assessment tells me and help me create a solution that's very specific for this particular client. Jerry doesn't do hard copy, but he does the same thing with his people in the LMS system. So more and more of that is starting to happen. So if you're not comfortable, long-winded answer, Mike, but if you have a situation and you're not comfortable figuring out and you don't have a map tomorrow, just call Gerard or any of the 3 of us and we can help you figure that solution out.
Thank you. My biggest problem right now with more than one client is their patience to do a full-blown like leadership development, 10 sessions. Yeah. They just don't got the patience, right?
That's fine.
I really need like 4 sessions, you know, 2 sessions.
And we can help you build that.
Yeah.
Okay. The facilitation, the suggested facilitation process is best practice because it gives us the spaced repetition. And we know as adults, we learn better through that model, but not every client wants that, needs it, or wants to pay for it or invest the time in it. But
you give them 4 modules and then come back 3 months, 6 months later and give him some more when he is in the mood for it, because the 4 modules are going to convince him that we can make change. We can change the way they're thinking about what they're doing. You know, that's not the point, right? They're not looking at leadership maybe in the way that they need to be looking at it. So you can do that. We had a client here, a big client, and we were sure we were going to give this C-suite team executive leadership. And after working with them for a little while on some other things, they are not ready for executive leadership. No way. No way. We have to be much more rudimentary than that. So we'll pick modules out to use for them. We want to make it feel different than their next group down because we don't want to make them feel like they're going through the same process. But truthfully, they need a much more rudimentary approach because it turns out very few of these leaders have ever had any kind of formal leadership development of any kind. It's astonishing, really, but that's the way it is. You know.
So we lay out best practices, but I know Jerry has a client, Wendy's worked very closely. They facilitate 1 time a month. So even though, you know, maybe your client would be more receptive, instead of, I don't want to allocate X number of hours 1 time a week for 10 weeks, maybe it's not going shorter. Maybe it's taking the facilitation process longer. So, you know, the old expression, you know, there's many ways to skin a cat. It's really what's the right solution for the client.
Now, Linda Martin once said to me many, many years ago when I was new, and I was called up and I said, I can't get this client to buy this process from me. She said, unbundle it, dummy. Unbundle it, okay? Go sell part of it. You're not going to hurt the client with the process. Go sell it. And, you know, I did. So, you know, it took me a while to kind of get it, right? It took me a while, but I finally did figure that out. And we've kind of been unbundling forever. It was just really hard in the old days.
Yeah.
You know, it was books and changing pages around, and now with LMS, it is a breeze.
Well, and now we obviously produce differently hard copy than the previous organization. So Bob Kinney is my example. He's a hard copy guy. You know, so that 40-person project, that 21-person project was all hard copy, but the way we produce is very different and very streamlined than we did in the previous organization. So it's out of this world simple if you're doing LMS. It is a little bit more time intensive if you want hard copy, but hard copy is much easier to unbundle than it ever was. So don't let hard copy stand in your way if that's the right solution for your client. Not everybody, you know, not everybody wants to use the LMS, although more and more, even Tom Leonard, he's straight off the shelf strategic planning, but he's now got people that are doing strategic planning in the LMS. That's like, you know, a 180-degree turn for Mr. Leonard. But it's making the resources available in a way that you can put them in the best solution set for your client. Because at the end of the day, we all know if we exceed our clients' expectations, they're going to need us again. You know, I did a LinkedIn survey for one of my presentations at Power Summit. And I said, if you're in the network 2 years or more, you know, just give me a rough idea of in year 2 and beyond, what's the percentage of repeat sales and referral business? And it was above 80% now. It's not statistically accurate, but our affiliates are pretty smart people. They understood the essence of the question. So yeah, not statistically accurate, but I would definitely, you know, I use that data in our mutual evaluation because I think it's a really important number to know for someone who's considering going down this path. So.
Well, hey, thank you. I'm going to have to run. I have a thing in 3 minutes, and I have one thing to do between now and then.
Well, it was good to see you, Mike. Other questions or thoughts for Rick before we end our time together? All righty.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Rick, for carving out time for us. I know that you've been pretty overly slammed lately, so we appreciate that. We have a session dedicated in Power Summit to more on the TTI tools, so more to come in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Make it a great week, everybody.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Tammy.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.